Well, it's December 25th, and as someone who doesn't celebrate Christmas, this is usually a very quiet time of year for me. But I've chosen to come out here today to talk about a topic which has been requested of me. The topic is about dealing with disappointment. And as archers, we tend to be perfectionists. So when we do archery, we expect things to go right. We know they won't, but we have this thought in our mind that hopefully we'll shoot well, we'll get a decent score, we might smash our personal best, we might win something. So there's a lot of pressure on an individual archer, and I think everybody who does archery, whether it's seriously or just casual competition, they'll go through this thought process. And I wanted to bring you out here today and share with you one of my milestones, and one of my negative milestones, but something which I think represents the aftermath of that sort of pressure. I'm here on this concrete slab because this is where the club used to be. I mean, it still is here, but we didn't have a clubhouse. This is 5 years ago. And this is where we stage all our club events, our come and try program, and our member training and competitions. This was the home base. And the targets used to be out here. So this is where I did my first shots. For my first year or two of archery, I was here every Saturday morning, every couple of days, shooting after work, just finding time and making the effort to practice as much as I could, because that's what you do when you start archery. You get your first bow, you shoot the heck out of it, and you feel really good about yourself. You start picking up all the nuances of your form, your anchor point, your release. You start customizing your gear. You buy new gear, and you really want to use it. That was the appeal of archery. And then you start scoring, and for me, that was when I started doing benchmarks. Our coach makes us do regular benchmarks. So every few weeks we do a 36 arrow end, and obviously if you get as close to 360 as possible, that shows where you're progressing. And I started off doing these benchmarks, and the progression was visible. I went from 230 to 250 to 270 to 280 out of 360, and I was chasing that 300. The coach said, if you can do 300, then you're on your way to becoming a good archer. And I got 300. I was really rapt. I was like, yes, I got 303. I just scraped it. And when it came to the next target, I was told that you should be getting 320, and ever since then my coach said 320 or bust. And I came with my gear, and we did the 36 arrow benchmark, and I was expecting to get a 310 or 320, and that one benchmark I scored, I think, 254. And 254 is not 320. Now, I'm no professional archer. I don't have that training routine or the training regimen that will get me on the pathway to becoming a serious competitor. But I seriously thought that I could make it. I thought that with the time I was putting in, I was shooting like an hour every 2 days, which is mild for a serious competitor, but at least it's more than once a week. And I was making good progress. I was getting linear. I was going upwards. But I reached that point where I shot the 250. And afterwards, I've shot lower scores. I've shot 230s, I've shot 280s. I've fluctuated a lot. But the first time I dropped from a 300 plus out of 360 to a 250 level, that actually hit me a lot harder than I thought. I actually went into a shutdown mode. Like I didn't want to talk to my fellow shooters. I actually didn't go home with them. Like, they offered me a lift to catch them to eat, what we normally do, and I just shut everybody out. Like I sat here, and I just put my head in my hands like I am right now, and I just kind of had this epiphany, this moment of realization that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And these weren't ambitions of becoming the perfect Korean archer and getting a perfect 360. It wasn't like that. It was just like I thought that I would at least get a 300, like my benchmark, my standard. But the drop so far below in a non-competitive environment, it was just like, it just shocked me. And it kind of still haunts me, that I can't pick up a bow and shoot with that expectation anymore. I can't really I kind of second guess myself. I doubt myself. I go, well, I know that I should be able to shoot at this level, but I don't. And it's kind of plagued me for the past 5 years or 6 years of archery. And this is a very strange way to commemorate 6.5 years of archery. But, looking at highs and lows, archery is all about highs and lows. And yeah, that was my low point. I've had other low points since. I've shot, at state championships and just come dead last by 500 points because I just couldn't get together. I was missing the target completely and all that. But, all those disappointments and low points, I think this one, the one which I'm sitting in the same spot where I put my head in my hands and just thought about my future in archery, this was the first one. And the fact that I've had many more since is a sign that, well, of course, you will go through highs and lows. But the other thing is, I've actually stuck it out. I've been able to stay with archery long enough to go through highs and lows. And I guess that's the message of this video is, you need to tell yourself things. You need to tell yourself certain things to keep you going. Archery isn't going to be perfect. As much as we want to be perfect, as much as we are perfectionists, we can't be perfect. You have to acknowledge that some days you'll shoot really well, other days you won't. That's part of what we do as archers. We have slumps in our form, and for many of us, we are driven by our emotions, by our feelings, by our confidence, by our doubts. And as someone who has struggled with anxiety and depression, I used to ride that wave, and archery was part of that wave. I did archery as a way to focus my thoughts and my feelings and my energy to something productive. There's something that could improve myself. But that too has become vulnerable to the same highs and lows as my mood. And as I've mellowed out and stabilized, I've gone through highs and lows in my personal life, so too is my archery. So I guess for me to give advice on how to overcome disappointment, well, that there are so many ways you can think about this, but my advice to archers who are going through a period where you've met that brick wall of disappointment, it is something you do overcome. And I'll say this, you need to be reasonable to yourself. And this is not just as an archer, but as a person. You've got to be fair to yourself. You shouldn't put so much pressure on yourself to perform. And I've been through this as a student, living the Asian standards. I've been through it as a teacher, trying to maintain with the public things I should be doing and what I should be doing for my students. And I've been through this as an archer, trying to make headway to competition. But the expectations on yourself have to be realistic. And you can set your goals high, but as of archery, if you aim too high, you miss the target. So you need to be realistic. But at the same time, if you do have these higher goals and you are shooting well and suddenly you just drop the ball or drop the arrow and you just disappoint yourself, just remember that while you might have failed in climbing this mountain, you've climbed other mountains in your life. Don't forget to look back behind you and appreciate what you've been through to get to this point. The fact that you've been out here, you've done archery, you've done your competition or your training, you've done more than what the average person has done. And you should not sell yourself short in that aspect. You have gone further than what most people will do. Most people won't even start, and you've gone far beyond that. Everything you've achieved up to this point is an achievement. It is something you should recognize. It is something you should celebrate. And while, yeah, you may have had a bad training session, you may have shot 100 points lower than what you thought you would get, that's still hundreds of points more than what someone else hasn't done. And that's really the message of this, is appreciate all the things you've been through, not just in your archery, but in your whole life. And don't let one bad score dictate your future as an archer. You have the chance to improve, and you should take that. And every negative experience, every low point, every disappointment builds you up for something more. And we all say this, you learn from your failures, you learn from your losses. And while that mountain that you want to climb might still be insurmountable, slowly you will get there. So that is my Christmas message to you. Hopefully this adds some insight into the way you see archery and the way you might see some parts of your life. This is New Sensei. Thank you for watching. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I'll see you next time.